I was holding a plastic champagne flute, streamers above me, music playing, when my boss raised his glass and said, "Let's give Wyatt a round of applause, he's officially unemployed." The room exploded with laughter. I stood there, smiling like it didn't sting. But 6 months later, I bought the company they fired me from. Have you ever been humiliated by people you once gave everything to? Ever stood there while they laughed, pretending it didn't break you? Yeah. I've been there. My name is Wyatt Benson. I'm 58 years old. And this is the story of how I turned their joke into my empire. The sound of clinking glasses should have been my first warning. Austin raised his hand for silence, that fake smile plastered across his face like always. The entire Crossford Corp staff was packed into the conference room, accountants, sales reps, even the janitor had been invited to this special celebration. "Ladies and gentlemen," Austin announced, his voice dripping with theatrical warmth, "tonight we're celebrating some exciting changes at our company." My stomach dropped. I watched him pull out an envelope from his jacket pocket, the same smug expression he wore when he took credit for my ideas. "Our dear friend Wyatt here has decided to take early retirement." The room erupted in nervous laughter. I stood there completely frozen as he handed me a pink slip wrapped inside a thank you card like some twisted birthday present. "Thanks for your dedicated service," he said, emphasizing dedicated like it was the punchline to a joke. The laughter got louder. 40 pairs of eyes stared at me with a mixture of pity and relief that it wasn't them. I grabbed my coat and headed for the exit. Nobody followed. Nobody said goodbye. Their laughter echoed behind me all the way to the parking lot. I was fumbling with my car keys in the cold night air when a voice behind me said, "You okay, man? Because I might have an offer for you." I turned around to see a tall stranger in an expensive suit. He looked completely out of place in a company parking lot at 9 p.m., like he belonged in a boardroom instead. "I'm Mason Doyle," he said, extending his hand. "I work for Sterling Capital, we're a private equity firm. I've been tracking companies with serious management issues, and Crossford Corp just shot to the top of my list." My brain was still processing what had just happened upstairs. "What does that have to do with me?" Mason smiled knowingly. "Everything. Companies like yours often have incredible hidden value that current management completely fails to see. Sometimes it takes fresh perspective and inside knowledge to unlock that potential." He handed me a business card. "Just in case you want to chat about what you really know about this place." I almost threw the card in the nearest trash can. Revenge wasn't my style, I'd never been that type of person. But as I looked back at those glowing office windows where my former coworkers were probably still celebrating my humiliation, something shifted inside me. I slipped the card into my pocket instead. I woke up the next morning feeling completely empty inside. 23 years of my life at Crossford, gone with a cruel joke and some cheap champagne. My phone was buzzing non-stop with messages from coworkers. Most were the usual fake sympathy, "So sorry to hear about last night," and "You'll find something better." But the worst message came from Austin himself, "Hey buddy. No hard feelings about last night, right? Business is business. Hope you understand." I stared at that message for 10 full minutes. Part of me wanted to blast the company on every social media platform. Write scathing reviews. Tell the world what really happened behind closed doors. But that wasn't who I was. Instead, I opened my laptop and typed Sterling Capital Mason Doyle into Google. His face appeared in several business articles about successful company acquisitions and turnarounds. This wasn't some random guy trying to sell me insurance, he was legitimate. I picked up his business card and studied it carefully. My hands were actually shaking as I dialed the number. "Sterling Capital, Mason speaking." It's Wyatt, I said quietly. From last night in the parking lot. You said we should talk. I was hoping you'd call. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? I think you'll find our conversation very interesting. The diner was nearly empty at 7 a.m. Mason was already sitting in a corner booth when I arrived, coffee steaming in front of him. He looked like he hadn't slept much either. Tell me about Crossford, he said without any small talk or pleasantries. So I did. I told him everything, our biggest clients like Thompson Industries, Blackstone Manufacturing, and Global Tech Solutions. I explained our completely outdated computer systems, the way Austin played favorites with certain employees, and how we were steadily losing contracts because of poor management decisions. Mason listened without interrupting once, taking careful notes on his tablet. When I finally finished talking, he leaned back in his chair with a satisfied expression. This is exactly what I suspected, he said. The company has solid fundamentals and good relationships, but absolutely terrible leadership. With proper management, it could easily be worth triple its current value. What exactly are you suggesting? Mason's eyes lit up. I'm suggesting we acquire it completely. But I need someone who truly understands the internal operations. Someone who can stay completely quiet for about 6 months while we prepare everything. My heart started racing. And what would that mean for me? Once we own Crossford, you'd be the one calling all the shots. Think you can keep this conversation strictly between us? For the next 2 months, I played my part perfectly. I applied for jobs I knew I'd never get. Who wants to hire someone my age in today's competitive market? My friends felt genuinely sorry for me. My former coworkers avoided me like unemployment was somehow contagious. But I was incredibly busy behind the scenes. I spent my days carefully documenting everything I could remember about Crossford's operations. Client contact information, supplier contracts, internal problems that Austin had systematically swept under the rug for years. I also started making casual phone calls to our old clients, nothing suspicious, just checking in to see how things were going with their businesses. Most seemed genuinely happy to hear from me personally. The new contact person doesn't understand our specific needs like you always did, complained Janet from Thompson Industries during one call. Honestly, we're seriously considering other options if things don't improve soon. I carefully wrote down every complaint, every concern, every hint of dissatisfaction I heard. Mason had specifically asked me to gather intelligence, and I was building quite an impressive file. The best part was that absolutely nobody suspected anything. To everyone else, I was just another unemployed guy desperately trying to stay relevant in his industry. The first real crack in Crossford's facade appeared during week 10. Someone had leaked information that the company might be a potential takeover target. I never found out who started the rumor, but it spread through the office like wildfire. Austin immediately called an emergency all-hands meeting. I heard about it from Tracy, a junior accountant who had always been genuinely kind to me. She called that evening, clearly worried about job security. Austin stood up there and denied everything completely, she told me, stress evident in her voice. He insisted we're stronger than ever and that whoever spread these rumors is probably just jealous of our recent success. But Wyatt, people are really scared. 3 good employees quit this week alone. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and guilt. These were decent, hard-working people getting caught in the crossfire of something they didn't understand. But Austin had created this entire mess through years of incompetent leadership. What do you honestly think is happening? Tracy asked me directly. I really don't know, I lied smoothly. But maybe change isn't always such a bad thing. 2 days later, Tracy sent me a text message that made me smile. You were right about this place rotting from the inside. I'm finally starting to see things clearly. Mason and I met again, this time at a different diner across town. He looked genuinely excited about our progress. "The rumor mill is definitely working in our favor," he reported. "Their stock price is starting to show some volatility. But we need one final push to really destabilize things, either significant client losses or some kind of major internal scandal." I thought carefully about all my conversations with former clients, about Tracy's concerning text message, about all the damaging documentation sitting safely in my home office. "I think I know exactly how to shake the tree," I said slowly, a plan forming in my mind. Mason raised an eyebrow with interest. "What did you have in mind specifically?" "There's this business blogger named Tommy Blake from TechScope Weekly. He used to be one of our biggest clients before Austin completely screwed up that relationship with his arrogance. Tommy's been actively looking for a compelling story about corporate mismanagement. And you think he'd be interested in covering Crossford?" I smiled genuinely for the first time in months. "Let me make a strategic phone call." Mason slid another business card across the table. "Use this secure number when you're ready to proceed." "And Wyatt?" "This absolutely stays between us until the very end." The article went live on a Thursday morning with the headline, "From Powerhouse to Problem Child, What's Really Happening at Crossford Corp." Tommy had done his investigative research exceptionally well. He didn't mention my name anywhere in the piece, but every single detail I'd shared was there. Client complaints, employee turnover statistics, financial inefficiencies, management problems. The article painted a devastating picture of a company in serious decline. Within just a few hours, it was being shared across business forums and LinkedIn. My phone started buzzing constantly with messages from former coworkers asking if I'd seen the article. "Did you read this brutal piece about our company?" Tracy texted me. The most satisfying part was watching Austin's reaction from a distance. According to Tracy's inside reports, he stormed around the office all day, demanding to know who had possibly talked to the media. He apparently even smashed his favorite coffee mug during the afternoon staff meeting. He looked like he was about to have a complete breakdown, Tracy told me later. Everyone's walking on eggshells around him now. The article eventually got picked up by two larger business publications. Crossford's stock price dropped another 4% that same week. I felt like a chess master who had just put his opponent in check. But this was only the beginning of my strategy. Sterling Capital made their first strategic move 2 weeks after the article publication. They quietly acquired Henderson Supply, one of Crossford's most important vendors. Nothing dramatic or attention-grabbing, just a simple business acquisition that barely made the local trade papers. But I understood exactly what it meant. Mason's firm was positioning themselves strategically, systematically cutting off Crossford supply lines before making their real power move. Mason had also asked me to draft detailed internal memos analyzing Crossford's operational inefficiencies. Nothing with my name attached, just anonymous, consultant reports that somehow found their way to key board members through various channels. How exactly are these reports getting distributed? I asked during our weekly coffee meeting. We have cultivated relationships in very interesting places, Mason replied mysteriously. The important thing is that influential people are finally starting to ask serious questions about Austin's leadership capabilities. He slid a sealed envelope across the table toward me. This contains our first official acquisition bid. It gets submitted Monday morning. My hands actually trembled as I held the envelope. After months of careful planning and strategic maneuvering, we were finally making our decisive move. You completely ready for this? Mason asked, studying my expression. I thought about that humiliating night in the parking lot, about the cruel laughter, about Austin's smug face as he destroyed my career for entertainment. More than ready. My phone rang unexpectedly on a Tuesday afternoon. Austin's name appeared on the caller ID. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Wyatt. Hey there, buddy. His voice was overly cheerful and obviously forced. How's that job hunt treating you these days? Still figuring things out, I replied carefully, keeping my tone neutral. Listen, I was thinking maybe we could grab coffee sometime soon. Just to catch up properly, you know. No hard feelings about how things ended between us. We met at a busy Starbucks downtown the next day. Austin looked noticeably tired and stressed. His usually perfect hair was messy, and there were dark bags under his eyes that makeup couldn't hide. So, he said after we got our drinks, have you heard anything interesting about the company lately? Any rumors floating around? I played completely dumb. Like what exactly? Oh, just the usual gossip and speculation. You know how people love to spread stories about successful companies. He was clearly fishing for information, and we both knew it. Can't say I've heard much of anything, I lied convincingly. I've been pretty focused on my own situation, honestly. Austin nodded, but his eyes remained nervous and suspicious. We made awkward small talk for 20 more minutes before he finally gave up. As we parted ways, I couldn't resist one tiny hint. Hey Austin. You should probably keep an eye on your email this week. I have a feeling something interesting might show up soon. The acquisition bid hit Crossford's board of directors like a lightning bolt from clear skies. Sterling Capital offered $35 per share, a generous 20% premium over the current market value. Austin immediately went into full damage control mode, labeling it a hostile takeover attempt. He sent panicked emails to board members claiming the offer was specifically designed to destroy the company's culture and fire half the dedicated workforce. What Austin didn't realize was that Mason had been quietly building relationships with key board members for months. Those anonymous consultant reports had been doing their job perfectly. Important people were seriously questioning Austin's leadership abilities. My name started coming up in hushed conversations around the office. Tracy told me people were wondering if I somehow had inside information about the potential takeover. But nobody suspected how deeply involved I actually was in orchestrating everything. Ever had a boss who made your work life miserable and then acted like they were doing you a favor? I'd love to hear your workplace horror stories in the comments below. And if you're hooked on this tale of ultimate workplace justice, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible revenge stories that'll keep you glued to your screen. That evening, a package arrived at my apartment containing a burner phone with a single text message, "Green light is officially go. You ready for phase 2? I typed back immediately, let's finish what we started. The final phase was about to begin, and Austin had absolutely no idea what was coming for him. Austin shifted into complete panic mode almost immediately. He scheduled emergency meetings with board members, desperately trying to convince them that Sterling Capital was nothing more than a vulture fund looking to strip the company for parts and profits. Meanwhile, he started firing people left and right. Junior employees mostly, anyone he perceived as a potential security risk or source of leaks. Tracy was among the casualties. He claimed they were downsizing to demonstrate fiscal responsibility to the board, she told me over the phone, clearly upset and angry. But everyone knows he's just scared and lashing out at innocent people. While Austin was systematically burning bridges and destroying morale, I was busy building strategic alliances. I reached out to other former employees who'd been mistreated, suppliers who'd been treated poorly over the years, even competitors who might be interested in partnering with us after the acquisition. Mason kept me regularly updated on our timeline. D-Day is exactly 2 weeks from this Friday, he texted me. Emergency board meeting is already scheduled. Everything's falling into place perfectly. I spent those crucial 2 weeks documenting every detail I could remember about Austin's poor decisions over the years. Every valuable client he'd lost through arrogance, every talented employee he'd mistreated or driven away, every corner he'd cut to make his quarterly numbers look artificially better. The beautiful irony was perfect. Austin thought he was fighting heroically to save his company, but he was actually helping us destroy his credibility with every desperate, panicked move he made. The timing couldn't have been more perfectly orchestrated. Crossford was hosting a farewell party for their retiring chief financial officer, Harold Kim. Harold had always treated me with respect and decency, so when he personally invited me to attend, I decided to make an appearance. Walking back into that same conference room where I'd been publicly humiliated just months earlier felt absolutely surreal. Same decorations, same catering company, even the same bartender. But everything had fundamentally changed. People stared when I walked through the door. Some looked genuinely guilty about their previous behavior. Others seemed happy to see me. A few just looked completely confused about why I was there. Austin spotted me immediately across the crowded room. His face went completely pale. "Wyatt?" He pushed through the crowd toward me, clearly agitated. "What exactly are you doing here?" "Harold invited me personally," I said with calm confidence. "I figured I'd come say goodbye to an old friend and colleague." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone knew about the swirling takeover rumors. Everyone remembered I'd been fired in this exact same room. And now here I was, calm and collected, chatting with Harold like nothing had ever happened. Austin pulled me aside near the large windows overlooking the parking lot. "Listen, why are you really here? This isn't some kind of revenge thing, is it?" I smiled and looked out at the parking lot where this entire plan had been born. "Revenge? No, Austin. I'm just here to say goodbye properly." Sterling Capital launched Phase 2 the following Monday morning. They announced the strategic acquisition of 2 smaller companies in our industry, direct competitors that would give them significant market leverage against Crossford. The business press picked up the story immediately. Sterling Capital positions for major industry consolidation, read the prominent headline in Business Weekly. Crossford's stock price dropped another devastating 8%. Several board members called emergency meetings. Austin's remaining support was crumbling rapidly. "The board's getting really nervous now," Tracy told me during of our regular check-ins. She'd found a new job but still maintained friendships inside the company. "Word is they're starting to seriously question whether Austin can handle this crisis effectively." Mason sent me regular updates throughout that crucial week. "They're breaking exactly as predicted," he wrote in a secure message. "Board meeting is scheduled for this Friday afternoon. One more strategic push should finish this completely." I knew exactly what that final push would be. I'd been carefully saving the most damaging ammunition for last, detailed financial records clearly showing how Austin had been systematically manipulating quarterly reports to hide declining performance and client losses. It was time to load the final bullet into the chamber. On Wednesday morning, I sent a carefully crafted anonymous email to 3 prominent business journalists. The subject line read, "Crossford Corp., Financial Irregularities and Management Failures Exposed." Attached were comprehensive documents showing how Austin had been moving expenses between different quarters to make his performance metrics look artificially better. How he'd systematically hidden major client losses by delaying official contract cancellations. How he'd consistently inflated revenue projections to meet unrealistic board expectations. The explosive story broke Thursday afternoon. Crossford Corp under state investigation for financial reporting irregularities. By Friday morning, 5 major clients had frozen their contracts pending the official investigation. The State Business Commission announced they were opening a formal inquiry into the company's financial practices. Crossford's stock price plummeted a catastrophic 12% in a single trading day. Austin tried calling me repeatedly throughout the crisis. I didn't answer any of his calls. There was absolutely nothing left to say between us. The crucial board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. sharp. Mason texted me at exactly 1:45, "It's time for the final reveal. See you on the other side of victory." I sat in my apartment, watching the stock ticker on my laptop screen, waiting for the phone call that would change everything forever. The dominoes fell much faster than even I had anticipated. By Monday morning, 2 additional board members had submitted their resignations. Austin's few remaining allies were openly questioning his leadership capabilities and decision-making. Tracy called me with valuable inside information. Kyle Peterson from the accounting department met with some guy in an expensive suit yesterday afternoon. Nobody knows what it was about specifically, but Kyle looked extremely nervous afterward. That guy in an expensive suit was definitely Mason. The endgame was accelerating beyond our original timeline. Tuesday brought even worse news for Austin's crumbling regime. The state financial investigation had uncovered enough serious irregularities to warrant a comprehensive audit. 3 more major clients pulled their contracts entirely. Wednesday, Sterling Capital made their final, decisive offer, complete acquisition with immediate and comprehensive management changes. The bid was now $42 per share. Austin was completely finished, and absolutely everybody knew it. The only remaining question was whether he'd resign quietly or try to burn everything down on his way out the door. Mason called me Thursday evening with the final update. Board votes tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. sharp. Win or lose, this is the end of our operation. What about Austin? Does he know about the management clause yet? He doesn't know about his removal yet. We'll let that be a complete surprise. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with anticipation. At exactly 10:47 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Mason, "It's completely done. 7-2 vote in our favor. See you at 2 p.m. for the big reveal." The address he sent was Crossford's main conference room, the exact same room where this entire story had begun with my public humiliation. I arrived at 1:55 p.m. wearing my best business suit. Mason met me in the lobby carrying a thick folder full of legal documents. "You completely ready for this moment?" he asked with a grin. "I've been ready for 6 long months." We walked into the conference room together with confidence. The entire board was already seated around a polished table. Austin was there too, looking surprisingly confident. He clearly thought he was staying on as a transitional advisor, or some similar position. I watched his face carefully when I walked through the door. First came confusion. Then recognition. Then absolute horror as the reality of the situation hit him like a freight train. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mason announced formally, "I'd like you to meet your new chief executive officer." Austin's mouth fell open in complete shock. "You? What? How is this even possible?" I opened the folder Mason had given me and placed it on the table in front of everyone. "Hello, Austin. As of today, I'm your new boss." The silence in the room was absolutely deafening. "This is completely impossible," Austin stammered, looking around the room desperately for any sign of support. "The board would never. Wyatt doesn't have the proper qualifications for this position." "Actually," interrupted board chairwoman Patricia Wells calmly, "Sterling Capital has provided extensive documentation of Wyatt's qualifications and his intimate knowledge of our company's operations and challenges." I placed an official document directly in front of Austin. "This is the management clause from the acquisition agreement. It specifically removes you from all positions within the company, effective immediately. Austin's face turned bright red with rage and disbelief. You can't do this to me. I built this company from nothing. I have legal contracts and agreements. You had contracts, I corrected him calmly, which were automatically voided when the state financial irregularities investigation began. Did you really think moving expenses between quarters would go unnoticed forever? Patricia Wells spoke again with authority. Austin, you have exactly two options available. You can resign quietly and professionally, or we can proceed with formal termination proceedings based on the audit findings. I watched Austin's entire world collapse in real time before my eyes. His trademark arrogance melted away completely, replaced by desperate panic and fear. Please, he said, his voice breaking with emotion. I have a family to support. A mortgage. You can't just destroy my life like this. That's interesting, I said quietly, meeting his eyes. I had all those same concerns when you fired me at the Christmas party for everyone's entertainment. The next morning, I called a company-wide meeting for all employees. Word had already spread throughout the building about Austin's dramatic removal, but I wanted to address everyone directly and personally. I know this transition is confusing and probably scary, I told the assembled staff. Some of you are worried about job security. Others are wondering what kind of leader I'll be going forward. I looked around the room carefully, making eye contact with as many people as possible. Here's what I can promise you with complete honesty. If you've been doing good work and contributing positively, your job is absolutely safe. If you've been struggling because of poor management or lack of proper resources, we're going to fix those problems immediately. Tracy was sitting in the front row, smiling proudly. Several other employees looked visibly relieved by my words. But, I continued with firm conviction, if you've been coasting on office politics and favoritism instead of actual performance, those days are permanently over. This company will succeed based on merit and results, not personal relationships or manipulation. After the meeting concluded, I found a resignation letter waiting on my desk. It was from Kyle Peterson, one of Austin's closest cronies who'd been promoted based on loyalty rather than competence. I didn't try to talk him out of leaving. Some changes are necessary for real progress. The official press release went out that same afternoon. Crossford Corp announces new leadership under veteran industry executive Wyatt Harrison. The media response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Turnaround specialist brought in to rescue struggling firm, read one prominent headline. Another called it a classic corporate comeback story for the ages. My phone didn't stop buzzing all day. Former co-workers, old clients, even competitors wanted to congratulate me or express interest in potential future collaborations. The most professionally satisfying message came from Janet at Thompson Industries. Wyatt, we just heard the incredible news. When can we schedule a meeting to discuss renewing our contract relationship? Within just 1 week, 3 major clients had called to restart their business relationships with Crossford. The stock price began climbing back toward healthy levels. But the message that meant the most to me personally came from Tracy. You actually did it. You really did it. Can I take you to lunch to celebrate this amazing victory? Over sandwiches at a quiet deli near the office, she asked the question I'd been expecting. How long have you been planning this takeover? I smiled and took a sip of my coffee. Since the exact night I got fired. Sometimes the best revenge is simply proving you were right all along. The complete restructuring took exactly 3 months to implement properly. I promoted Tracy to head of the accounting department. She definitely earned the opportunity. Several other overlooked employees finally got the recognition and advancement they deserved. I also implemented comprehensive new policies throughout the company. Regular performance reviews based on actual measurable results, not office politics. Mandatory ethics training for all management positions. An open-door policy for employees with legitimate concerns or suggestions. Most importantly, I systematically fired all the deadweight. People who'd been coasting under Austin's protection suddenly found themselves looking for new employment opportunities. Mason called me one evening in late spring with an intriguing proposition. Ready for phase 2 of our partnership? What exactly did you have in mind? Sterling Capital is looking at expanding into the West Coast market. We could use someone who really knows how to turn struggling companies around effectively. I leaned back in my office chair, the exact same chair Austin used to occupy. Let's build something even better than what we have here. The irony wasn't lost on me at all. A year ago, I'd been a discarded employee with no prospects. Now I was being recruited to help acquire and improve other companies. Austin's biggest mistake wasn't firing me. It was completely underestimating what I was capable of when properly motivated and given the right opportunity. I encountered Austin 6 months later at a downtown coffee shop. He was wearing an obviously cheap suit and carrying a worn folder full of resumes. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in just one. He didn't notice me initially. I watched him practicing his interview pitch at a corner table, rehearsing answers to common questions. His legendary confidence had completely vanished. When he finally spotted me across the cafe, our eyes met briefly. He looked away immediately, gathered his papers quickly, and left without finishing his coffee or making any attempt at conversation. Later that evening, I discovered a message in my work email. Wyatt, I know you probably don't want to hear from me ever again, but I'm genuinely desperate. I've been searching for work for 8 months now. No one will hire me anywhere. Could you possibly provide a professional reference? I know what I did was wrong. Please. I stared at that message for a very long time. Part of me actually felt sorry for him. He had a family to support, bills to pay, the same financial worries I'd experienced when he fired me. But then I remembered the laughter that night. The public humiliation. The way he'd smiled while systematically destroying my career for everyone's entertainment. I deleted the message without responding. 3 weeks later, our HR department received an official call from the State Labor Board. Austin had filed a formal complaint claiming he'd been wrongfully terminated and that I had orchestrated his firing as an act of personal revenge. Our legal team wasn't concerned at all. The paper trail was absolutely clear. Austin's removal was based entirely on legitimate financial irregularities and documented poor performance. My involvement with Sterling Capital was completely legal and above board. But during their thorough investigation, they uncovered something truly interesting. A hidden email chain showing that Austin had been systematically diverting severance funds into a personal account for over 2 years. Including the money that should have been my severance package. We could definitely pursue criminal charges, our lawyer informed me. Embezzlement, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, we have solid evidence for all of it. I thought about it for exactly 10 seconds. Do it. If this story of workplace justice has you thinking about your own career experiences, drop a comment below about the worst boss you've ever had. Hit that like button if you believe karma eventually comes for everyone, and don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable true stories of revenge and redemption that'll completely blow your mind. The State Business Commission filed formal charges the following month. Austin's complaint against me was dismissed entirely, and he found himself facing potential jail time instead. I forwarded the court documents to the state board with no comment attached. Sometimes justice truly serves itself. 1 full year after that humiliating Christmas party, Crossford held a new celebration. This time, it was to announce our most profitable quarter in company history. I stood in that exact same conference room, looking at many of the same faces. But absolutely everything had changed. The atmosphere was genuinely celebratory. People were truly proud of their work and accomplishments. When it came time for the traditional toast, I kept my remarks simple and heartfelt. A year ago, this company was struggling badly. Not because of market conditions or bad luck, but because of poor leadership and toxic management practices that poisoned our culture. I raised my glass toward the assembled crowd. Tonight, we're celebrating more than just financial profits. We're celebrating what happens when good people are finally given the opportunity to do good work in a healthy environment. The applause was completely genuine this time. No nervous laughter. No hidden tensions or resentments. Just authentic appreciation and team spirit. After the party ended and everyone went home, I found myself walking slowly through that same parking lot where Mason had first approached me with his proposition. The exact place where this entire plan had been conceived and born. It felt like coming full circle in the most satisfying way possible. I'm writing this final chapter on a peaceful Sunday morning, sitting in my home office with coffee and the newspaper. Crossford's latest quarterly report made the business section, record profits, industry recognition, employee satisfaction scores at an all-time high. Sometimes people ask me if I feel any guilt about what happened to Austin. The completely honest answer is no. I didn't destroy his career. He accomplished that himself through years of incompetence, cruelty, and financial misconduct. All I did was give him enough rope to hang himself with. The best part isn't the money or the recognition or even the deep satisfaction of proving everyone wrong. It's the knowledge that good people like Tracy now work in an environment where their talents are truly valued and their contributions matter. Austin chose to rule through fear, favoritism, and manipulation. He got exactly what he deserved. They fired me in front of everyone that night, thinking it was the end of my story. Austin probably went home and bragged to his family about how cleverly he'd handled the Wyatt problem. But now they all work for me. And that's the most beautiful revenge of all.